They found a hole in the hill, a place whispered about in hushed tones, but never sought. For a very long time, that dark opening in the earth was a secret kept by the trees and the quiet stones of Blackwood Ridge. It was a wound in the landscape, a memory the town tried to bury. It had been silent for 25 years, a scar left from a day of sudden, violent grief that echoed through generations. The entrance, once a busy gateway for hard-working men with futures ahead of them, had been sealed with tons of rock and soil, a crude tombstone on the mountainside. Over the decades, nature had patiently worked to reclaim it, weaving a blanket of moss and roots over the closure, as if trying to erase the pain held within the stone. Then one day the quiet was broken. The past, it turned out, was not finished with Blackwood Ridge. The deep guttural hum of heavy machines returned to the ridge, a sound that stirred uneasy memories in the town below. They dug with a purpose that felt both new and terribly old, peeling back the layers of earth and time with methodical precision. What they found inside, when the seal was finally broken and the stale air of 1999 met the present day, stunned everyone. It wasn't just a collapsed mine, it was a time capsule. To understand what they uncovered, you have to go back. It all started on October 21st, 1999. The Blackwood Mine wasn't just a business, it was the lifeblood of the small town of Harmony Creek. It was the rhythm of the community, the reason for its existence. Men went down every morning, faces soft with sleep, carrying tin lunch pails and steel-cased lamps. They were fathers, sons, and husbands, their boots tracing the same path their own fathers had walked. Down in the deep, the world was a symphony of labor, pickaxes against rock, the screech of carts on iron rails, the low, constant rumble of machines chewing through the coal seam. The air was thick with damp earth, sweat, and the metallic tang of coal dust that clung to everything. It was a hard, dangerous world, but it was their world. Darkness punctuated by beams of light, and the easy camaraderie of men who trusted one another with their lives. They shared jokes, stories, and the unspoken bond of facing the earth's pressure together. Then, the rhythm stopped. A deep tremor ran through the rock, a vibration that felt wrong, unnatural. A groaning shudder from deep within the mountain, a terrible, pregnant silence, and then a deafening crash from the main shaft that sounded like the world tearing apart. The ground fell. The main tunnel, the artery connecting these men to the sunlit world above, collapsed in a violent storm of rock and splintered timber. In an instant, the lights went out. Arthur Vance, the shift foreman, was at the entrance, coffee in hand. He felt the tremor, heard the grinding roar, and dropped his cup. He watched a billow of dust exhale from the earth and knew what it meant. Rescue teams arrived with astonishing speed. Harmony Creek was a mining town, and this was the disaster they had feared. Men from neighboring towns, volunteer firefighters, seasoned mine rescue specialists converged on the ridge. Under the harsh glare of portable floodlights, they went to work. Shovels, pickaxes, muscles straining, and heavy machinery clawing at the tons of rock. The air filled with engines, metal on stone, urgent shouts. They called, "John! Michael! David!" Then absolute quiet. Listening devices pressed to the rock, microphones seeking the faintest tap. Hours bled into days. The town held its breath. Wives, mothers, children gathered, eyes fixed on the entrance, waiting for a miracle. But the collapse was vast and unstable. Every shovelful invited more falling rock. Small cave-ins forced retreats. Exhaustion set in. Hope dimmed. After 5 agonizing days, the rescue was called off. The mine was sealed, and time was all that remained. 25 years passed. Harmony Creek changed slowly, like many small towns. New houses went up, older ones stayed weathered and worn. Toddlers from that day grew up, went to college, started families. Main Street changed. Some doors opened, others closed for good. Pines and oaks climbed the ridge, their roots gripped the soil above the old mine. The sealed mine sat like a scar. People avoided it, wound unhealed. Families did not forget. Smiling husbands, fathers, sons, hope that never fully left. They gathered each anniversary, haunted by questions. Why? Could it have been different? Reopening was proposed and dismissed. Too expensive, too dangerous, too painful. Some said let them rest. Others wanted closure and a final chapter. Then a modern survey found a rich, untapped seam near Blackwood. Sterling Minerals offered to fund a state-of-the-art excavation, recover remains, find the cause, gaining rights to the new seam. Months of debate led to approval. For the first time in decades, there was reason to return to the hole in the hill. Blackwood Ridge stood quiet, holding its breath again. On a crisp Tuesday, October 21, 2025, the air smelled of damp leaves and anticipation. For 26 years, this hillside had held its silence, a monument to a day of loss. Now, a crowd gathered, old and young, faces carrying a complex tapestry of hope, anxiety, sorrow, and solemn curiosity. There were families of the lost, journalists documenting a historic moment, and engineers who had spent years planning for this day. After a final, silent check of the monitors, the project lead lifted his radio, his voice steady against the quiet hum of machinery. "We start now," he said. A massive remote-operated drill, a machine of surgical precision far beyond anything available in 99.2, bit into the sealed earth. Its low, powerful vibration was a stark contrast to the decades of stillness. A fine gray plume rose, the first breath from the mountain in a generation, like a ghost disturbed from a long and heavy slumber. On a nearby ridge, Eleanor Vance, Arthur's widow, stood with her granddaughter, 2 generations linked by one moment of suspended time. For Eleanor, it was an echo of the past. For the young woman beside her, it was the beginning of a story she had only ever heard. The team worked with meticulous care. They drilled a precise ring around the original entrance, inserting long steel pipes to form a structural cage above the collapse zone, preventing any further instability. A specialized polymer resin was then injected, hardening to the strength of concrete in minutes. Every step was guided by technology that would have seemed like science fiction back in '99. Ground-penetrating radar mapped the voids and densities of the rock, while pencil-thin fiber optic cameras gave the team their first, tantalizing glimpses beyond the blockage. Each movement of the drill, each decision to proceed, was weighed with extreme caution. The goal was not just to open the mine, but to do so without disturbing what lay inside. Then, after hours of painstaking work, a wall of compacted soil and stone crumbled inward. The plug fell away, revealing an aperture of pure, undisturbed darkness. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, a single, unified sound of awe and trepidation. The first to enter wasn't a person. It was a small, tracked robot, its powerful LEDs cutting into the blackness, its tethered cables spooling out like a lifeline to the present. On the monitors, grainy chaos became shape and shadow as the lights pierced the gloom. The air inside, sampled by the robot's sensors, was stale, thin, and cold. The camera panned. Rusted rails vanished into the dark. A cracked support beam stood coated in a thick blanket of gray dust. The rough-hewn walls, untouched for decades, looked exactly as they had been left. It was a tomb, perfectly preserved. The camera found a name carved into pine: Davy, the youngest, just 19, a half-burned matchstick, a dented tin cup bearing a faint fingerprint, a heavy jacket stiff with dust, inside a wallet, a young mother and a baby, Michael Rafferty's family, a fine white layer, like snow, rock dust pulverized to flour by the collapse, a lamp oil bottle half full and darkened, a dented carbide lamp, tools for navigating darkness. Then, a glint revealed a tiny leather shoe on a beam, no bigger than a man's hand. Silence fell. Elders recalled John Carlin, a woodcarver. The shoe was a christening gift for his first grandchild, never finished. Advanced sensors and cameras revealed what the original investigators could not. Massive supports lay shattered. Close-ups showed advanced rot and water damage, a slow-motion failure. Unusually heavy rains preloaded the roof. Scans showed it perilously thin. Disaster brewing. Production quotas climbed while safety protocols lagged behind modern standards. Headline: Negligence, not nature, caused the tragedy. It was difficult, but validating. Quiet anger, and a sense of release. "We always knew," Eleanor said. "We just couldn't prove it." The amorphous grief now had a shape and a cause, choices made by people. In the aftermath, the families of the lost miners made a simple, powerful request. They asked that the names of their loved ones be spoken again, not just in hushed whispers of grief but officially recognized, their sacrifice etched into the town's permanent memory. The recovery was a painstaking, almost archaeological process. Remote-controlled robots, equipped with high-definition cameras and delicate manipulators, were the first to re-enter the silent darkness. Every item they encountered, from the largest piece of machinery to the smallest, most personal button, was photographed in situ, its location logged with precision, and then carefully removed. Under a heavy gray sky, the community finally gathered for the service they had long awaited. A local pastor stood and read 14 names into the stillness. After each name, a single, clear bell rang out, its solemn tone mingling with the distant, persistent hum of the recovery machinery. But closure was not a simple path. Once the recovery was complete, the town divided again over the fate of the site itself. Some argued to seal it completely, to bury the painful memories and leave no reminders on the landscape. Others saw an opportunity, a duty, to build a place of learning from the tragedy. In the end, they chose a middle path, one of remembrance and respect. They created a quiet memorial park on the ridge overlooking the town. The main entrance to the mine was sealed forever by a permanent, imposing gate. Just beside it, a small, stabilized stretch of the original entry was preserved behind museum-grade glass, allowing visitors to peer into the very threshold that held so much history. A simple bronze plaque was installed, its surface telling the story of the mine, the collapse, and the recovery in plain, unflinching words. Engineers recovered what was needed for the investigation, stabilized what was needed for public safety, and sealed what needed to be laid to rest. The personal items found deep within the mine were cleaned and returned to the families in private, sacred moments. The findings led to a comprehensive report that rippled far beyond the small town, fundamentally reshaping mining safety regulations and protocols across the entire country. Old miners, men who had spent their lives underground, now walked the new memorial path. They stood at the sealed entrance, their once boisterous youth replaced by a quiet, knowing solemnity, their eyes reflecting a history only they could fully comprehend. Now, new generations come here. Students on field trips learn not a ghost tale, but tangible lessons in geology, engineering, corporate responsibility, and the profound importance of listening to warnings from the earth and from each other. At night, the ridge is peaceful again. The sounds of industry are gone, replaced by the whisper of wind through the trees. A single soft lamp illuminates the plaque, a quiet vigil in the calm darkness. The families finally had answers. They had a place to go, a place to remember, and names they could say aloud in the open air. The mine that had taken so much had, in the end, given back the most important thing it held: the truth.